Well, hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Straight Outta Prison podcast. My name is James K. Jones, and this is my story.
And this is Haley Jones, and this is his story that has now become a part of my story.
So we're here. It's time for your story to be my story.
And it's a miracle that we're here. I'm not going to lie.
Well, no reason to rehash that on this platform. We could rehash that on the For Real.
Okay, so yes, and we will do that.
And just for the record, we got in a little tiff before we started, so.
Which we will unpack on the For Real.
Sure.
Okay, so.
Tune in.
We left off last time with you shutting down the Gardendale Kairos pretty much overnight. Yeah. And just what led up to that and just.
The huge epic fail. I mean, I would say, obviously, getting arrested, going to prison, being involved in crime, that was a huge fail of my young life.
That was a huge fail, yes.
But it was one that I learned so much from.
Yeah.
You know, you can turn your life around. You can do something different if you want to do something different. If you want to learn instead of letting it define you. This one was a little different because it was just such a public failure. And I didn't know how to proceed. Like, I didn't know how, like, where do I go from here? Because overnight, I'm back down in Birmingham with Steve and all of them around me trying to give me all their good advice. And back to the old cramped quarters of Kairos Cafe in Birmingham. And just knowing from a numbers standpoint, there's no way to get out of this. I mean, there's not, aside from some kind of miracle, there's not really a way to resolve. The debt was just too much.
So just to be clear, because I mean, it's really hard to comprehend I wasn't walking through it, but to know that you're back down to the one smaller restaurant, the original Kairos.
Yeah, I'm going backwards.
But you opened and closed the second one, spent all that money, had all that debt, now to have the second one closed that's not paying for itself, basically.
Yeah.
So this little tiny small Kairos is now having to pay for the big one as well.
Yeah, so
like you said, I mean, it's definitely an impossible situation.
Back again. James is back, but I've got almost $500,000 in debt that I've got to deal with.
Right.
And, you know, those first few weeks, I was kind of numb. Like, I was going through the motions, like, trying to figure it out. But it was just a daily, just get up and put your feet on the ground and do what you can.
I feel like you say that a lot. I'm just thinking you a lot. Like, in life now, like in our daily life and on this podcast, like, just trying to figure it out. Just figuring it out. Just trying to figure it out. Just
Isn't that life? Isn't that life, though? Like, trying to figure out, you know, how to get here. What was I thinking? Where do we go from here? How can we succeed?
Just trying to figure it out.
Yeah. It was rough. I didn't think I was going to get through this. Like, I thought, let's just pull the plug. I'm going to move to Phoenix City with my cousin Lisa. My Aunt Patsy, she manages a Piggly Wiggly down there, and she was like, I can make you a manager and pay you this, and this.
Yeah, because so I guess like the easiest road after that would have been to close everything down, file bankruptcy. And then just like pretend it didn't happen.
Well, I know I'd heard like if you file bankruptcy, it's only 7 years. It's like, well, I did 7 years in prison. I can do 7 years of bankruptcy.
What's another 7?
But at the same time, I couldn't just... how I'm made, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to do everything I could to make it work. And it was lucky for me that time. It was October was turning into November. When I had Kairos,
right about now.
Yeah.
Exactly now.
The Thanksgiving season and Christmas season, you were always busy because you had parties, you had catering, you had events, you had all this stuff going on. And that was really what kept me those first few weeks, was just being able to stay busy. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of weird because I didn't really want to talk about it, but everybody seemed to want to talk about it. And
that is so you, by the way.
No, I'm trying to process. I don't process quickly. I need to retreat and, you know, lick my wounds and figure out how I got here and what we're going to do next.
And this was a massive wound. I mean,
no, it was horrible. It was tough. But I remember my Aunt Glennis called. And she was like complaining about something that was going on in her life because she's my aunt. She's like my sister. If I had a sister, it would be her, Lisa, you know. Mm-hmm. But she was telling me all the things that she wasn't working out the way she wanted to, blah, blah, blah. And then I just told her that we shut down the Gardendale Kairos, and she was like, oh my God. It's like, what am I doing? What am I talking about? And I was like, no, please keep talking about you.
Keep talking about your problems.
It is what it is. We'll figure it out. We'll get there. But we said this before, the public part of it was humiliating. But then having to face like investors and all the things was just, it was almost unbearable. But I knew I had to do it, so I did what I could.
Okay, so you said the first few weeks you were kind of numb and just trying to process it, which I get.
Yeah, I was just going through the motions.
So was there a time after those few weeks or a month or whatever where you kind of felt like your head came up for air and you like, okay, got any kind of clarity on what you needed to do next?
No, I was in just a weird space. Honestly, to be honest, Denise was running Kairos during that time. Mm-hmm. She kind of just stepped in and took over. And really, she was the only one I kept from the Gardendale. After we shut down the Gardendale Kairos, I kept her and I kept Brandon. And it was just depressing. And, everybody would want to come and talk about it. I remember my dad and his wife came down and he just came in the kitchen, just stood there. It was like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
So, tough times.
So, were you angry at anyone? Like no. God or, I don't know, like people that have advised you or anybody? I mean,
well,
hold on, because the reason I asked that, because I think of the stages of grief.
Yeah.
And how anger's in there somewhere, I know.
Yeah. It's the third or fourth one.
Yeah. If you like felt anger towards anyone or anything or...
In the beginning, I was in shock, so it was just denial. Like, mm-hmm. How can this happen? And like, how can I recover from this? This was bank loans, power bill, Alabama Power.
Is that anything you can go to prison for? I'm just curious. I don't know. Okay.
We talked about that in the last episode. I had a friend, Sharon Denham, because I was 2 months behind on my taxes.
Right. I remember. Yeah.
And she was like, you can get locked up and get a federal crime for not paying your taxes. And actually, that's not the law. The law is that you can get arrested for not reporting your taxes. Mm-hmm. So I never failed to report anything. There was no dishonesty on my part.
Yeah.
But it was just I couldn't pay them. So, And then I had that $100,000 credit card loan where they were jacking up all my sales. Like we could have enough sales to make payroll, but then they took, 30-40% of that daily. So it was like you just couldn't come up for air.
Right.
And it was just like hemorrhaging money, and it was tough. I mean, and then on top of all that, I had to deal with Steve. He was worried because he had his name on a lot of stuff.
But he had quit.
He said he quit. Yeah, so I reminded him of that all the time. You said you quit, so let's stay quit. I don't need to be, you don't need to be advising me anymore. You advised me here.
Right.
So, but as far as like being mad at Jesus, I never really experienced that. I felt like, and I've had friends that go through hard times and they get mad at God, like, oh, he led me here and then left me. And it was like, maybe he didn't lead you there. Or, it's different for different situations. But I know in my situation, I knew that any part of this failure had to be on me or on my advisors. Like it couldn't be on God because he's perfect. Mm-hmm. And I know he's always for me. He's always got a plan. And on the other side of something big like this, you can look at it and examine it and maybe, take it apart. And I realized that I got involved with the hype when it started. I just rode that hype wave.
Yeah.
And I never really stopped and asked for a lot of direction from Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am. And he gave me 3 things that I wrote down in my journal. I want you to learn something, see what you can learn from this. I want you to be a blessing to other people and just don't quit. So that was the only thing I had. So I was like, okay. I think the first thing I learned was that bigger is not always better. Like we think bigger is better, and bigger can be better.
For sure.
But in this situation, bigger took me down.
Yeah.
So trying to go too big too fast.
Right. Absolutely.
Up to that point, it had been a process.
Mm-hmm.
And in hindsight, I looked at if I wouldn't have tried to go so big in Gardendale and maybe just chose a smaller place, that we probably would have been successful.
Yeah.
So here we are.
So obviously it feels like the impossible. You're just putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
You do still have a restaurant that you are. I know you said Denise was running it, but obviously you were in the back cooking, doing a lot of the.
Yeah, I was letting her do all the bills, and I remember just being ashamed of that, but I didn't want to talk to anybody. Just give me a minute. Give me a minute to figure this out. And I remember one of my investors was Jeff Dennis. He owns a jewelry store in Gardendale. Mm-hmm. He was one of the first ones that reached out to me to try to get me to Gardendale, and he offered to a sum of money to invest. Mm-hmm. The way that he treated me was so just refreshing and it was humbling. But he said, look, this is what happens when you invest in businesses or when you invest in anything. And then he told me that he had a jewelry store early on and he had failed miserably, went bankrupt, and, but he learned from it and now he had a very successful business. But he said, don't worry about me because I invested in you. And if you would have succeeded, then I would have had a return on my investment. But it didn't succeed, so it's a loss and it's okay. So just don't even think about me. And I remember thinking,
what a gift.
No, I remember thinking, if I ever get in a situation where I can be that person, I want to be like Jeff Dennis, because I had other people that were the opposite of that.
Yeah.
That was very, I had one guy.
Well, hold on. Before you saying that reminds me of my dad used to always say that he learned early on that if someone came to him asking for money or he wanted to, I guess, invest or something.
Yeah.
I mean, even on the other ends of like friends and family that ask for money, that he decided.
Or that they need a loan.
Right. Yeah. And he did that many times for many people. But he decided on the front end, like if I give you some, because of course, everyone who's asking for money or needs help is going to be like, I'll pay you back, I promise.
Yeah.
And just, how it is. But he's like, I just decided that's fine. But like if he decided to give it, then he decided that he didn't expect to get anything back.
Yeah.
If he did, fine, great. But like, kind of like Jeff Dennis.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to give or I'm going to invest or I'm going to help. Like, but do it kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just free and clear, I guess.
Yeah.
Which, when you're on your side of things like that and you were struggling so hard on so many ways and had worked so hard and done everything you could, and not that you didn't make mistakes because you did, but to have someone treat you like that, I can just see how that was just like
It was refreshing because on the other side of that, I had a guy that invested a large sum of money in the Kairos Cafe in Gardendale, and he was actually like an executive pastor in a church somewhere. So he was like a man of God, but he was an investor.
Man of God.
Well, I mean, you got pastor by your name.
Let's define what man of God
exactly
looks like.
But he lost his mind. Like, he called me screaming, hollering at me. And I said, look, I've been talking to you for the last 4 months. I've reached out to you over and over, and I told you we're in trouble. And I've tried to get people to give me input or advice. I've done everything that I can do. I opened on Sundays against my will. I put in a buffet against my will, and none of it worked out. And he wanted a check. And I said, I don't have a check. I don't know where you think I'm going to get money from.
Did he think you were hiding or not hiding?
I don't know.
I don't know. Money back.
It was so confusing. So I said, I'll give you stock. I mean, you can come have the whole business if you want it. I don't care. We'll figure it out. But I need a minute to process and to figure this out before you. And he started calling me every week, just needling me. And it was maybe about a month in, he called and he said, I was in my kitchen this morning drinking my coffee and my Bible flipped open. And there was a scripture there that I've never saw before. And I've been reading the Bible all my life. But it said that if you have a conflict with a brother in Jesus, that you're not supposed to sue him. Because he was threatening me with lawsuits and all this stuff. And finally I was like, get your lawyers. I mean, what can they get? There's nothing for them to have.
Well, there was nothing you could do at that point.
Yeah, but he, I don't know how to say it. He was just coming at me, almost nasty, but, trying to do the sweet Jesus thing on the end.
I think it's an example of how things get very messy when it comes to money, I think. And I think when people need money, which is my suspicion. I don't know this at all. It's just my own.
Yeah.
Is that when you get in a situation that you need money and you feel desperate and then you feel like somebody owes you money, it causes you to do things and say things that maybe you wouldn't otherwise.
Well, that's true. But for him, like, he was throwing out sums of money. Like, he invested almost like $50,000. And he was throwing that out as a number. And I was like, no, I have the records of everything. I've paid you $30,000. You know, you only had, there was only $20,000 or $19,000 left on what I owed you. That was hard getting through that. And you feel like you're a target for somebody and they're threatening lawyers and lawsuits. And then the Breck and Company that owned the place up there, they filed a lawsuit against me. And then I had a customer, Charlie Beavers, who was actually a Kairos man. I met him in prison. And he ate in Kairos every day of the week and brought clients in. But he said, let me handle this for you. And he got all my stuff and looked at it. He came back and he said, there's a lot of fraud in this lease and the things that they put you. He said, we need to sue them. I can probably get you all the money to clear up everything because they, you know, this is the corporation. And I said, well, they didn't make me do anything. And he said, well, there was some fraud involved in the way they handled you and, you know, what they told you when you went in. And I asked a few people about it, and I just felt kind of dirty. Like, I'm not going to get into the lawsuit game. I'm not doing that. That's not who I am.
See, I probably would have jumped into the lawsuit game.
So he said, well, at the very least, to get them to leave you alone, I just want to show them a countersuit that I can file. And if they drop theirs, we'll drop ours. So I said, okay. And he showed them that, and then they were done. Like, let's move on.
And they dropped it.
Later, Breck.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that was during the, it was during the 2012 presidential election. We were right in the thick of that. And I remember calling and trying to talk to her because I want to talk to her because it was her business, but she was always trying to get me to talk to Breck. And I got her on the phone and she was like, look, Mr. Jones, you're in default. And I was like, I'm aware of that. And she said, I would love to talk to you right now, but I'm at a rally for the future president of the United States, Mitt Romney, the next president, and I can't talk to you right now. And I remember just being so elated when Obama won, just for that, just for that, just for Breck and Company. But it was a lot of that, but the personal stuff that hurt me the most was the way Steve started treating me. He compared me to a guy named Armand. He was some Italian guy that came to Birmingham, and he opened a big fancy restaurant. But he ended up opening like 4 or 5, and apparently,
like a chain. He made it a chain.
It wasn't really a chain. They all had his name connected to them. They're all different. They're spread out all over Birmingham. But he was doing something with the money, and got on a plane one night and left everybody holding the bag for all the money, and he compared me to him. And I remember just getting so angry with Steve, like, don't compare me to a con man.
Right.
Like, I haven't even got a paycheck, much less taking some money and doing something with it. That's ridiculous. But I can say in hindsight, I know that I did everything that I could, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
So I got to that place, didn't know what was next, didn't know how to proceed. But then we started getting busy with the holidays. And around the holidays, I got a lot of opportunities, like with Fox 6 and with the Birmingham News and, you know, just sharing recipes and stuff. But in the middle of all this, it was about 3 weeks after we moved back to Birmingham. We were in the kitchen cooking, and it was like a lunch rush. Denise came through and just blurted out, James is turning down the catch of the century. And she like spun on her heels and rushed out of the kitchen. And Jeremy said, who is she talking about? And I said, she's talking about some bossy girl up in Garndale. Some bossy girl up in Garndale she thinks she wants to set me up with. And he was like, oh, yeah, you wouldn't do good with a bossy girl. That wouldn't work out for you. So I didn't think anything else about it. But when I got home that night, something about her, just the way that she just like looked at me and was like, whatever you're doing, you're messing it up. You're turning down the catch of the century.
But it's funny because when now we've talked about all that you're going through and we're like dealing with and handling or whatever, I can see how just like I don't need another.
No,
thing
I don't need
right
anything
now.
else to add to this. And who would want me right now?
Also, something to think about.
I mean, even my friends didn't want to be around me because I was so depressed and going through so much anxiety. I mean, they did, but it's just when you're in that kind of situation, you just need a minute to process and figure it out. But I got home that night, and her comment was bothering me. So I texted her, and I said, Denise, why do you think that Haley Hobart is the catch of the century for me? And she sent back a text. It was at least 3 paragraphs long. She was extolling the virtues of Haley.
Which is funny because I didn't even know her that well.
Well, but she admired you.
Okay.
And she started coming to your little business things for Kairos. Because I went one time, and then I said, I'm not going to be doing all that, Denise.
Yeah.
We can do it, but you do it. I'm not doing it. I'm not going and sitting in them long meetings. But she said, you know, she's a go-getter. She has a business mind. She's beautiful. She's talented. She's creative. She's a leader, blah, blah, blah.
Gosh, I need to hang out with Denise again more.
She ended it with, and besides all that, she has great teeth. So it's like, Denise, you sound like you got a crush on her. Almost automatically, without thinking, I think this was like a Tuesday night, I texted you, and I said, and guys, this is the romance. I was very romantic in what I did. I texted you, and I said, hey, I got a P.F. Chang's gift card for my birthday, and it's about to expire. You want to go to dinner Friday night? I was just kind of putting myself out there. I didn't know. I mean...
Oh, gosh.
But then you said yes.
So the funny part about this is that when he sent me this text, I was actually in Sweden. And I had gone back for a long weekend or something.
It was a wedding, I believe, or a wedding shower.
No, I think it was a bachelorette party.
Okay, something to do with
one
the
of my
wedding.
good friends. Yeah. And so I literally flew back to Sweden for, 3 or 4 days, maybe 3 days, not long.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in a cafe when I got this text, waiting on a guy
Lars
to meet me. And, he's a guy I'd kind of like seen off and on. And anyway, there was something there. But I was waiting to meet him to see him while I was there. And I got your text about dinner. And I said, well, actually, I'm out of the country. I'm out of the country right now.
You did? I know. I think you said I'm abroad. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Because you would say stuff like, when I get stateside, I'll. What does that mean? I'm from Alabama. We don't talk like that.
I did say I'm abroad at the moment.
I'm like, I know you're abroad.
And I don't remember. Was I going to be back for the time you asked me?
Night.
Okay. So, I think I came back maybe the day before or something. So I said,
You said
You're
yes.
making fun of me. I said, yes, I'll touch base when I'm back stateside. Yeah.
Stateside. Yes, stateside. Like, what does that mean?
It means you're back in the States.
And I've never left
on
the
the
States.
side of the United States.
I've lived in a state my whole life, and I will never leave that state, or at least the states, the United States of America.
Oh gosh,
it's so funny. But
it's funny that you even say that because I didn't even think twice about. I don't know. That's like a normal thing to say.
Well, that just added to my intimidation. Like I'm talking to somebody who jet sets and goes to,
who's abroad and needs to be back stateside before I take.
Yeah, and I don't even really know what that means. I mean, I know what it means, but like
That's
in practical conversation, I don't know anybody that talks like that or says stuff like that.
I didn't even think about that though until we're talking about it right now because you've never said that to me. That when I'm
putting myself back in the moment.
Those words.
I remember when we were dating, somebody asked you, "Did you get that dress from Walmart or something?" Maybe it wasn't Walmart, but like, "Did you get that dress from Belk?" And you're like, "No, I bought this in Paris."
I did. Okay, I don't talk like that. Number one,
that's what you said.
I know, but I'm sure I didn't say it like that. I'm sure I'm like, I got that when I was in Paris.
I bought this from a boutique in Paris. It did not come from.
And they're like, oh, like Paris, France,
Paris, Georgia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's hilarious.
It is. But can you see like all these things, like how you were. Made me very intimidated by you.
Yes, but I didn't know that at the time.
Well, from that Tuesday to that Friday, I like stressed over everything.
Well, hold on. Feel like I need to pause because.
Yeah, tell us about Lars.
Well, hold on. But walking through, like, now that you've talked about all that you're going through and stuff, like, I didn't know any of this. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that the restaurant had closed.
Yeah.
But I had no idea. I mean, all these things you've shared now, like,
You didn't know the
people
details.
think I was in the loop or maybe knew about it or kind of was connected. Like, I was not connected at all.
We were.
So I
really only had one meeting.
No idea everything like you were facing and up against and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got that text. I came home and I told my mom about it, and she was like, "Oh, well, are you going to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to go." And someone was in town visiting her. I think Terry, her best friend, who's actually coming to stay with us this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lars, that became a non-thing. I mean, we're living in 2 different countries, and
Yeah.
I mean, you never know. Sometimes those things can.
Well, wait, but Hobie told me that he came to visit one time and you broke his arm.
So he did. He did come to visit. I did not break his arm.
Who broke his arm?
A 4-wheeler broke his arm.
Were you driving the 4-wheeler? Yes, I think so.
Maybe.
Anyways, you got this guy from Sweden.
I honestly can't remember.
Flew to Mount Olive, Alabama.
Yeah.
And we're riding him through the woods on a 4-wheeler.
Yes, this is all true. And I flipped the 4-wheeler.
Yeah.
And I know that can be very serious. I've heard. I did not know. But anyway, he had to go to the ER and they had to reset his arm.
So you broke his arm. So when he saw you in Sweden, was he like, "Get away from me"?
No.
I'm scary.
He was like, "Give me more. Give me more."
Oh, wow. If you would have broke my arm, I would have had to take that as a sign from the Jesus. Like,
I'm just kidding.
Maybe this is not the thing.
No, I mean, it was like, I honestly, you know how I'm with details. I know we dated for a while. It was just kind of like a we'll see zone, I think it was.
Yeah.
And when I went there for the weekend, it was kind of a natural thing to do, like, oh, let's connect and have coffee or whatever.
Let's hang out with Lars.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, I came home and I decided that I would go on this date with you.
Wow.
And so I don't know how we decided this, but that we would meet at the McDonald's.
It was because you were coming from Mount Olive and the McDonald's was 2 blocks from my house.
Okay.
That was your idea. I don't know. I would have picked you up.
I think now that it's all coming back to me, I think I didn't want you to pick me up because I didn't want it to feel like a full on date.
A real date.
The whole build up to he's picking me up. It just felt like I don't want all that right now. I'll just meet you at McDonald's, okay?
And you were late.
And of course, I was late.
You texted me and said, "I'm a time optimist."
Fashionably late because I had just come back stateside the day before.
Oh my gosh, here we go. So, but in between that, from that, I believe it was a Tuesday night when I asked you and you said yes, but I had to get to Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, whenever it was. I think it was Saturday.
It was Saturday because college football was on.
Yeah,
it wasn't Friday. It was Saturday. I started sweating out your social media. I got on your Facebook, got on your Instagram, and started digging around.
I don't even know it was on my social media back then.
It was just you were all over the world. Here's Haley. Oh, yeah. Here's Haley in Sweden. Oh, here's Haley with her parents in Hawaii. Oh, here's Haley and her friends in Greece. Or here's Haley in Paris. And, I was like, what am I trying to get myself into? I mean, I just tried to open a second restaurant and failed miserably. Why am I doing this to myself? And then I found your mom's social media. I noticed that she liked wine a lot because there was a lot of pictures of her in the winery.
Also true.
No, but she was looking at wine, holding it up and sniffing it and stuff. And when I was at Leonardo's, I learned a lot about wine.
Yeah.
I don't like wine, but I learned, and that's what they do. They sniff and look and swirl and do all things. And I think the one thing, I don't think I've ever told you this. There was a picture, I believe it was your dad's last Easter, and it was on their back patio. And it was your dad and mom, your sister Abby and her husband Sean, and your brother Hobie and his wife Al and all the kids. Mm-hmm. And I've always been, especially with girls, I've always been very, just had a complex because I have a little belly, and it just won't go away. And I noted that every one of those guys in that picture had a little belly. And I was like, maybe I could fit in here.
That is hilarious.
No, it's true. Go back and look at the picture. I know Sean, they started CrossFit right after that, so he doesn't have that anymore, but he did then. And I remember that just giving me some kind of confidence, like, maybe she's a different kind of girl. Like, don't care if I have six-pack abs or not. Stuff like that. That gave me some. But then the more I looked at your life, the more paranoid I got. Like, I don't need to be, this is not my world. Like, I don't need to proceed with this. And the day before, I texted Steve. I didn't talk to him for advice much by this time. Especially business advice. Like, I don't want any of the business. But he was good with relationships and emotional stuff. I mean, that's his gift. He was a counselor. He knew how to. And I texted him and said, all right, so I got this date with this girl. She's beautiful. She's everything. But I'm scared to death, and I know I'm out of my league. And I really don't understand why she would be interested in me ever. But especially at this stage of the game, when I've lost everything and I don't even know what's next, why she would even say yes. Like, why would she even bother with me? And his response was, she's a different kind of girl. And somehow he had followed your family through your dad dying and all this stuff. And he said, look at how they dealt with the sudden death of her dad. Like, they were sad. They went through all the emotions, but they weren't like devastated, didn't throw them off their life. Like, they still trust Jesus. They're still following, doing all things. So that tells you that her family's very healthy and you need that. And I was like, hold up. You're trying to go too fast. We're just going out to dinner. And he said, well, honestly, somebody like her is probably attracted to your story. Because she's probably one of those girls, if she's been all over the world, like, just an ordinary, boring person's not going to do it for her.
He was 100% correct on that, by the way.
But he didn't even know you. But he was amazing how he could pick up on, like, emotional cues and just stuff like that. And he said, and besides that, she seems like a very confident, strong woman. And that's the kind of woman you need. And I said, why? And he said, because she ain't going to let you run over her. So I was like, okay, here we go again. But he said, why don't you just face it? Like, you can be a lot. And you need somebody that'll stand up to you. And I didn't really hear that at the time. But I was like, okay, I'll go. We'll see what happens. So
he was very perceptive, I would say, because obviously I didn't know him either. I never met him, never even spoken to him.
Yeah.
So I think
I don't know how he studied your family. I don't even know how he knew.
Well, if he was on that email thread with my dad, then, like, I shared a lot there. There was a lot of sharing. There was probably oversharing with the prayer requests, and even
I don't
after
think
the
he
fact.
was, unless Denise shared.
I don't know.
But Steve, if he wanted to know something about people, he found it out.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying it's fascinating, because I do think he was correct.
I used to say you're kind of like a Christian spy, like you know everything before even anybody knows you know it.
Well, he was right on the fact that, like, I had gotten wind that you had been in prison. It was very fascinating to me.
Why? Why was that fascinating?
Because I never met anyone that'd been in prison. Like, that life is, like, very foreign. And I do think, full disclosure, I've always been attracted to the, like, I'll call it the good bad guy. Like,
what's a good
or like
bad
the bad
guy?
Good guy, maybe. Like he's not like Mr. Perfect that's like done everything right and done this and that, and like is like Steve said, like, that's a little boring for me. Like, I need there to be some kind of, like, zest or, like, something there that, like...
So you didn't care for whether or not I had a stock portfolio?
A what?
A stock portfolio and investment properties?
That was not on my list of questions the first night. No, it was not. No, but just, like, that there was a story there that you had, like done some things and faced some things.
Yeah.
But come out the other side. And, like, that, to me, like, I really admire that. Like, I feel like that's it was an exciting story. Like, I wanted to know more.
Even though I came through all that and started a restaurant in Garndale and it was the epic fail, that didn't bother you?
I didn't know at that point how much of an epic fail that was.
We knew we shut down.
Financially. I knew you shut down, but I had no idea any details of how much money you owed going into that, or, you know, all the humiliation stuff. Like, I mean, I didn't know that. Not that it obviously didn't matter, because once I learned,
Yeah.
but the mere fact that it was more, I think, the prison story, and knowing that, like, seeing the path through, reading a couple of your things on Facebook, I guess.
Okay.
But just knowing that you had pushed through.
Oh, wait. I do remember something. So
What?
you were sweating me out on social media.
Oh, I sweat everybody out on Facebook.
No, but I took a selfie of myself. Or actually, I took a picture of myself when I got a buzz cut in the office at Kairos Cafe Gardendale and said, y'all like my new buzz cut?
I remember this, actually.
And you said, ooh, hot.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did. I can pull that up because you told me later on you wish you wouldn't have done that, but then you're too embarrassed to delete it.
I must have had a couple glasses of wine or something before I did that, because that is not like me to do that.
That was about a month before I asked you on a date. And Denise was behind the scenes, like, telling me, she would come to me and say, you know, this Haley girl, I think she'd be perfect for you. And I remember I told her one time, then you date her. Like, I do the lesbian thing. I don't know. Don't
James,
take that off. I was kidding. But she said, Haley's not like other girls. She's not going to chase after a man. She's a woman that has to be pursued. And you have to pursue her. And I said, well, I'm not there. I'm not doing all that. So, but now that I know you, like, you, that is you. You're not going to.
Well, me, right, and I'm sure there can be evidence to prove that, but I have to say, like, that is very unusual for
What?
me to, like, write hot or something on. I mean, you know me now. I'm
I was
not really like that.
Fangirl.
But that's probably, like, the most amount of pursuing that I would ever do. Like,
That is the only.
like that, yeah.
That's all you ever did.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I was for sure intrigued. I remember being intrigued. I remember, like, a couple of my meetings, I got your muffins or cupcakes or something.
So you
Yeah,
like the
I was
food?
for sure intrigued. Yeah. So let's go to the first date then. We meet at McDonald's.
We meet at McDonald's. You were late. You sent a text and said that you were a time optimist. And I was like,
And I am.
what does that mean? That's the first time I'd ever heard that. Like who is this girl? This bossy girl from Garndale using all these big words. Time optimist. Like, what does that even mean? So it means you're going to be late. Why don't you say, hey, I'm running late.
So I'm optimistic with my time. And
Well, you're late, but I met you there. You got in. I was very nervous, but I also didn't have any expectations because I felt like I don't even care no more. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to act like, because up to that point when I dated a girl, I always tried to act like they wanted me to act. And I was just over that. Like, if you don't want me for me, then move on, nerd. But at the same time, I felt like I had no shot with you anyways. So we were just going out to dinner. And might as well, I love P.F. Chang's, might as well love dinner and be done with it. And I was telling myself this will get Denise off my back. But at the same time, there was something about it that was exciting, but it was more scary for me than it was exciting. But when we got to P.F. Chang's, there was a wait, and I think it was like a 45.
I was going to say, it was a long wait.
It was about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And we just sat out in that little entryway and just talked. And I don't know what it was, but it was just refreshing for me that I could just talk to you and just be myself. And you seemed genuinely interested in me. You were telling me about your family, your dad, your mom, all things.
I was genuinely interested in you.
I know, but there was something about that first date where I felt like I could be myself, all of me, strengths and weaknesses, and be honest. And it was kind of like a level of freedom that I'd only ever experienced in my life with my granny. And, I was still grieving her death. She'd only been gone like 6 months by then.
Right.
But she was, and I'm not saying that to down my mom or to down anybody else. It was just when I was with my granny, I could be me. And she loved everything about me. And not that she wouldn't challenge me to change things or do things better, but that had been taken from me. My granny wasn't here anymore. And somehow I was feeling that with you, and it was just like I would start feeling like emotional and then feel like, oh, you need to like back up.
Lock that down.
This ain't gonna work out. You finna go bankrupt and no girl, ain't nobody studying you. But I remember when we sat down for dinner, I think you knew I went to church and all things, and you were like, would it be okay if I order a glass of wine? Like asking the question. I was like, only if I can get a beer. And
See, I didn't know how you felt about that. And for me, that was like,
no,
I
you
know
could
this sounds
tell.
crazy, but for me, I think told my mom
Yeah, that would be a game changer.
and Terry. Well, I said, I need to be able to feel free to like,
Yeah, be
this
yourself.
is- when I go out to a dinner, a nice dinner, like I want to have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And I need to feel like that's okay.
But you could tell that you were asking me like in the church way, like, is this going to be okay? Is
Yeah.
it's going to offend your spirituality, kind of thing. And I thought that was so cute. And I think you got up and went to the bathroom. Denise was texting me during that. And I was like, she just ordered a glass of wine, so I think we're on a good start. Because she was rooting for us. Like, she was hot and heavy, like.
You want to hear something funny about that ordering a glass of wine?
What?
Is that, I don't know if you remember this, but the wine that I ordered, there was only a little bit left in the bottle or something.
I don't remember.
And I had made up my mind, like, I mean, I don't want to like have too much wine, so I'll just try to have one glass, even though normally I would have two, etc. But like, there was only a little bit left in the bottle that I ordered, so they brought me that and were like, we're going to bring you another glass because, we didn't have enough or something like that. And I remember thinking, yes, I'm going to get a little more than a glass.
But we had the best dinner, the best time, the best talk. It was the best date I'd ever been on in my life. And I remember that was when I was really into social media in those days. Mm-hmm. Like that was, first couple of years it was out. So you want to document everything, take a picture of everything.
Yeah.
And I took a picture of our food. And I said I was out on a date, but I didn't say who with. So it's like it created this like buzz and a stir. I actually did that our first 3 dates. I didn't introduce you to that world until a couple months in. We got to the end of the dinner, and you were going up to Texas for Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. So you were going to be gone for like a week. So how did we plan the next thing?
Gosh, I feel like maybe it was planned like when I was gone that we said we were going to plan something, but then
no, we went ahead and planned a date.
Oh, we did. Okay,
but it was like it would be after Thanksgiving. So this was like mid-November. Mm-hmm. You were going out of town. You're going to Texas to spend Thanksgiving with your family and all these things, and you're going to be gone for like a week or so.
Yeah.
And then when you came back, then we were going to have a second date.
Yeah.
Like we planned it that night, and I remember like just like my mind like. How can this be happening? I mean, right now, like, how can this be happening right now in the middle of my worst time of my life? How could I be planning a second date with this girl? It didn't make any sense, but I was just like, yeah, and do you remember all that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you're better at remembering all the details, but and here's the thing though, you got to remember like my perspective was totally different because I still at this point, I mean, I knew a little, but I mean, even hearing you tell it here right now while I'm sitting, we've been married 8 years. I feel like I have a better appreciation, understanding of everything you were like dealing with and going through, even now, So imagine back then we had like one long conversation. I was just kind of like, ooh, I'm still intrigued. I'm still like very fascinated, interested. I really like him. Like I guess from my standpoint, it was a lot simpler. It was a lot just like, I like him. We're going on a second date. Like, he better plan to pay. You know what I'm saying?
It was neat. It was just something like I just knew that I was supposed to have another date with you. Mm-hmm. The drive home, we still talked all the way home. When I took you to your car at McDonald's and dropped you off. When I got home that night and was getting ready for bed, I was like, something different is happening here, and I understand it, and it scares me a little bit, but it feels right, and it feels like nothing I've ever experienced before. Like, I mean, I've had love and all, or what I thought was love and all the things, but I knew that night that something was different, but it made no sense to my logical brain. Like, how could anything be working out for me in the middle of the biggest fail of my life? Like, how could that be? Like, how could that...
That is some crazy irony there.
It was.
So did you hear the end of the anthem song? I still got a lot of fight left in me. That's what the song is coming back to me. This is my fight song, take back my life song.
Yeah. But I
don't know why that song is.
I didn't know how. I didn't know. Yeah. I was working a lot because we had a lot of business, and I'd got rid of most of my staff. And I mean, I couldn't afford them, but I didn't know. I didn't know what was next for me. I didn't know how I was going to find my way out of this. I didn't know nothing. I was just like waking up every day. I trust you, Jesus. Show me what to do. And I've told people this, and if you're not a believer, you don't really understand it. Or if you're not like a Jesus follower, you might not understand this. But that 2 months after that happened, like you read in the scriptures, like especially in the book of Acts, where it said that people came into a relationship with Jesus and they were empowered by the Holy Spirit. And he would send them here, send them there, do this, do that. Like God was just like leading them and navigating them. I've never before felt that kind of presence and power of God that I did during those couple of months, but it was because I didn't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And he would show me what to do. Okay, we'll do this. We'll try this. We'll do this. And it was, I don't want to go through that kind of fail again, but I wish I could like tap into the secret of what that is, of like you get to a place of total dependence. And it was just a neat time. And then all the things that came out of it. And then we're getting to the end of this episode, so we'll probably want to...
Yeah, so next time I think it's a good stopping place because we're like kind of
first day
getting to the top of the, like things are getting exciting between you and I. But it's something kind of an intangible. Like we don't know, but do we know? But we know, but we don't know.
Yeah, it was weird.
So we'll unpack that.
It was a good weird, though.
Yeah, we'll tell the rest of the story next week.
Yeah, I'll leave you with a phrase that I coined for us during that season. I don't even know. It was the only way I could describe what I was feeling and the atmosphere of my life. It was joyful anticipation. Calm, joy, anticipating something, but I didn't know what I was anticipating.
Since then, we've made that a hashtag. Hashtag joyful anticipation.
Okay, then.
Feel free to use it.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week and tell you, I mean, obviously you know what happened, but we'll tell you the rest of the story.
We'll tell you how it happened.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Well, hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Written and produced by the Team Jones Company.
Yours truly, James and Haley Jones.
If you like what you've heard, you can subscribe to all of our podcasts.
Download the Patreon app. You can get all of our content early and ad-free. Straight Out of Prison, The For Real, and Narrowing the Gap. There's a specialized feed there for all subscribers. You'll get downloads, updates, exclusive contents, live Q&As, and more.
Or head over to teamjones.co/podcast and click on the Become a Patron button.
And I'll also put that in the show notes.
Other ways you can support us is to like and share, leave a rating and review, and support our sponsors. They help us provide this platform for free.
Listen on Apple, Google, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.
And thank you again for being a part of our story.
Oh, I love that.
Anything out of these videos, please hit the like button, the subscribe. If you never want to miss a recipe or anything I do, hit the little bell and you'll get notifications.